Oh, I believe we are live. I think we'll need to just get a confirmation from someone.
Okay, so let me just also check on YouTube if I can see us live on YouTube right now.
Okay,
Okay, so I think yes, we are live on YouTube.
wonderful. So, hi Nitin. Today we are able to start on time without any glitches. So hopefully
I know.
this may be where we may be continuing for the future as well.
Yeah,
So
and probably we would look at also going live on Instagram through this.
if
But let's see how it works out going forward.
so let's see, right? So
Yeah.
today we have an interesting topic. I think till now we had been focusing a lot on uh, just a lot of processes and meanings of certain things, right? And today the conversation has turned to caregivers and an idea. I think we are kind of trying to see if you're looking at boundary setting or compassion fatigue for caregivers. I think we may take some time to just understand what are we talking about when we say caregivers, because I do also feel like a lot of time caregivers don't even realize that
Yeah.
this is something that they're even doing, right? Or and so identifying what does caregiver mean, what do we mean when we say caregiver burnout? To some degrees, I don't think that may take too much time, but then to see what are these challenges and certain things that as caregivers there's also the caregiver's guilt. No matter how much I do is not never enough, and all the challenges that the caregivers themselves kind of go through, and maybe some suggestions from our side in terms of looking at specifically boundary setting. What does that kind of mean and look like in their day-to-day life? And maybe in addition, if we could also, I wanted to kind of look at compassion fatigue. I think an example of the compassion well, to kind of give a visualization for people as to what are we meaning about when we say we keep giving in, and not knowing how to refill that well, or when to say stop. So these are the things I would love to hear from you as well, and let's see how we can take on the conversation as well. So in your
Okay, so it sounds like a very interesting topic that you selected this week.
yeah.
And given that what you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of caregivers don't even realize that they're actually caregivers. Hopefully, the conversation today will help a lot of people understand the kind of role they're playing and how others may be playing a role of caregivers for them without them realizing that that's actually happening.
Right. So this is a very interesting aspect, I guess. This is for those people. I mean, I think as soon as you said that, one of the buzzwords around that came up was what trauma dumping, right? Because in the mental health sphere, this is something I'm beginning to hear quite a bit, like, oh, that person just trauma dumps at me whenever I. So there are these boundary setting that is coming in from two sides. Like when I'm doing the training as well, the boundary setting doesn't just come on setting boundaries in terms of how much help I can give, but also in terms of how much and how to ask for help, so that I don't end up taking advantage of the kindness that has been shown to me.
True,
So
true.
probably that's an aspect as well. But let's start, Nitin. Nitin, what do you understand by caregiver in the simplest of ways to understand? And have you ever been a recipient or been a caregiver yourself? So I think that may also some add some value to this.
Okay, so let's start with like the very basics, right? Caregiver. Anyone who's playing the role of providing care for someone who is currently going through some amount of mental, emotional challenge,
All right. So
right?
every parent is a caregiver. Would that be a statement?
In a way, yes, right? So when we talk about caregivers, they can be different kinds of caregivers. They could be caregivers who are actually offering services for as a paid service,
Hmm.
right? So you will have doctors, you will have nurses, you will have psychologists, you'll have social workers. Many of them may actually be getting paid for the services they're offering, but they're still providing caregiving services,
Hmm.
right? Then there are people who are providing care because of their love, their affection. right? And some providing care because they don't have an option, but they're just in a situation where they have to provide the care that they have to.
It's my
This could
job
be
or
our family
responsibility.
members.
Yeah, it's my responsibility.
Correct. It could be family members, it could be friends, it could be even at times colleagues, but
Mm,
they're just in that space where they know that you need some care and they need to be there for you, or
mm,
you need to be there for someone to care for them while they're going through certain emotional, behavioral, mental challenges.
perfect. And when we are talking about this particular thing as well, there is also sometimes a chronicness that comes to this. So when you are talking about, it's not just about having to be responsible in certain scenarios. Very often a caregiver's role would also involve that to be a very big part of their life itself. And when we say a big part of their life, time and attention consuming, where they may need to plan, in fact, plan their life around this. And I think this is where some challenging areas, specifically when we are talking about caregiver spectrum, comes in unique challenges. Something like, for example, if you're a caregiver for someone dealing with dementia, if you're a caregiver for some, or taking care of someone who's going through a chronic physical ailment, or someone who's dealing with a mental health disorder and is in the red zone quite a bit. They may have behavioral issues or cognitive challenges or emotional challenges that can be quite taxing. So different ways that this can play out. However, when we look into almost going towards a burnout, we are almost looking at some level of chronicness in the amount of time and attention one needs to give. So herein begins the first step itself, right?
Correct. So there is caregiving, which is more like a natural part of it. Like you spoke about parents, right? So to an extent, all parents are caregivers for their children simply
Right.
because children would require that amount of support while growing up.
Right.
But that is one part of caregiving. There is another issue where you will have, uh, for example, like you mentioned, there are certain people who are going through certain emotional challenges. There are certain people who are going having certain disorders. Now, these are people who may require you and your support for certain day-to-day functioning,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
They may not even be able to get up from the bed unless someone is actually helping them take care of that. And also, then the caregiving would depend upon there could be physical issues because of which people require caregiving, and depending upon how dependent that person is on the
Right.
caregiver's role responsibility increases dramatically.
So for example, if it is something of a discomfort, for example, if it's an injection that I need to give, and there is the pressure that I may feel, for example, that I need to give this injection every day at these very specific times, and if those things do not happen in that specific time, there is a repercussion, a consequence on the well-being of the person involved. And depending on your emotional connection with the person, that impact what it can cause to the well-being, state of well-being of the person. Sometimes it may alter their behavior or emotional state, which can then play a part on adding stress, where we have to be able to address that every person who's in the receiving capacity of care may not be able to show gratitude,
True.
right? And because these things, we may almost not even think about it, how much we need a sense of gratitude from the other person when we are taking care of the person, right? Like, this is the eternal complaint of the parents. तुम बड़े हो जाओगे तो तुम्हें समझेगा. When you grow up, you will understand the pain of, right? So when we are talking about this chronicness, there is time dependency that is coming in, the level of care, and especially these can be very challenging. If, for example, if this kind of a care is something I ever come into a position, right, that I have to be there every time, that specific timing, 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. I have to do this. Yes, I do it for a week, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 4 months. Now all the days are beginning to meld into each other, aren't they? And the challenges and the way the person is able to cope. There is them having feelings of resentment, feelings of guilt, sometimes not having any feeling numb. And this is where we are beginning to talk about, is the person entering the burnout territory
Yeah.
as well?
See, so okay, so what happens is many times when you're acting or when you are being a caregiver for someone, there is a desire that we have to help that person, to support that person. And in that desire, we at times end up overdoing,
Hmm.
which means we end up going beyond our capacity. So, for example, even when you are supporting someone, you still need to take care of your eating, your sleeping, and so on, right? Now, if you stop sleeping every night, or you're sleeping only 2 hours, 3 hours every night because you want to take care of the other person, while you are trying to take care of the other person, but how long is it even sustainable, right? And then when this causes burnout, now we are in trouble because the other person still needs a caregiver and you also need a caregiver.
Right. And this is I see a lot of these challenges, especially, I mean, because I work so much in suicide prevention itself, where I come across people who have taken on the caregiver role for someone dealing with suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation. Now it's fantastic to see that they are taking out their time, they are giving their attention, their compassion, they are sharing it with them. But then over here, one of the biggest challenges I see, it is coming with boundary setting itself, right? And very often this boundary setting comes in the case of two major questions I have seen. One is of confidentiality, and the other situation that I've seen is with 24/7 availability. There is these are the promises we end up making, and very often a person who's requiring that kind of care may expect it off out of you as well, because again, desperate times, desperate measures, right? I don't know what else to do, and I have to take care of myself. So when I ask someone ki, okay, will you be there whenever I call, or it becomes very um for the listener or the caregiver, it almost becomes a call to duty or call of service. That and I've seen people just without any training, they just automatically say, call me whenever, no matter what time it is. Now this, we are talking about someone you're not probably living with, maybe it's in your friend capacity and all. But then putting in these promises, and then also promises like, don't worry, I will not share it with anyone. Now, as with day-to-day issues and struggles and stuff, these kind of promises still fine. But the moment we are talking about someone with extreme cases, like for example, suicidal urges, uh, how do you deal with that? For example, if the person were to say, I'm about to go and do it, are you still going to be able to hold on to that promise? And these things are also adding to that ethical, moral dissonance I would like to add in this point, that a person really goes through. I mean, I have seen people burn out like within a week, Nitin.
So, again, here's the thing, right? When we say burnout, by definition, what does burnout mean? That I'm doing more than what I'm capable of doing right now. I'm going beyond my capacity, right? There could be 1,000 reasons why you're going beyond your capacity. And some of those reasons may actually be out of the goodness of your heart. But unless you are able to take care of yourself, it will be very difficult for you to take care of the other person. Okay. You touched upon the topic of confidentiality and someone wanted to commit suicide and so on. So that's another part that as caregivers, it's important that caregivers also need to know the limitations. A trained caregiver is different from a family member who is being a caregiver, right? And this is not to say that a trained caregiver is better than a family caregiver, because in many situations, the family may be far better caregiver
Because it's
overall
duty.
than
Yeah.
probably what a trained caregiver would be.
Yeah.
But the training, the dilemma, the morality is very different in both cases.
It's an interesting thing that you have brought up here. And I think a very simple question, I think one of the first questions, that if you are in a position of a caregiver, someone who's going to give regular care to someone. And when we say care, this is involving giving your time, uh, uh, giving your attention, or doing any service acts of service, anything that you're taking your time out and doing for someone else, and you're not probably you're not getting much in return, especially in this capacity. If this is happening, one of the first things, would you need some training?
See, so obviously, some training is better than no training,
There you go.
right? In any line of work, whatever you're doing, there can be certain
But
people who
the
may be
challenge
naturally
is,
good
I
at it.
don't even want to call it work. See, this is the challenge for the family member, right? I have to do this because he's my family member. I can't look at it as work. So is
Yeah,
there
but when I say work, I what I really mean is anything where you're doing something. It could be even brushing your teeth. You may not call it work, but you're putting in an energy to do it.
Hmm,
Right? So now the question is whenever I'm required to do something
hmm.
or I want to do something, would it be better for me to have some training or would it be better for me to have no training? The logical answer is it's better to have some training.
You're right.
Right? Now, does everyone require training? Probably the answer is no. Certain people may be naturally good at certain things. So certain people may naturally have the ability to be the caregiver that someone needs. Right? But again, being the caregiver and knowing where you're going overboard, where it could lead to compassion fatigue or burnout, and going further overboard and not realizing where you need to set boundaries, and boundaries not just for your welfare, boundaries also for the welfare of the person that you are providing care for,
Right.
right?
This is the
Again,
concept that they find difficult to
correct.
understand, which is,
And
I want to be nice. I want to be nice, and I cannot say no when the person is coming and asking for help. How can I say no? Because they need it more than me. See, these are the transactions that are happening. Their life is miserable. They can't deal with it already. All so, I'm constantly seeing this other person in so much suffering and so much struggle, and I'm constantly seeing myself better, in a better position than them,
so,
almost.
not just that, Sachin, I have heard people telling me that because I'm not completely exhausted, I'm not doing enough. The reference point for me having done enough to take care of someone for a
Is
lot of people
am I
is
am
do
I
I feel completely exhausted or not?
am I awake right now? Am I functional? If I'm able to talk, why am I not talking to them? If I'm able to do something, why am I not doing it for them? And if I'm not able to, if I've really pushed myself to that level where I'm actually not able to move and do something, then that's enough.
Correct.
But they forget
But
to,
then,
if
but then when that happens, eventually people feel guilty that I was so exhausted, but I wasn't able to take care of them because I was so exhausted, and now they are in a worse condition than I'm in.
and now there is also the chance that the other person is upset with them that you didn't deliver to the expectation that you had set up.
Correct.
So we play ourselves in a way.
So it becomes very important for people to. So therefore, when we were talking about training, therefore I said that will training be useful? Uh, like I said, certain people are naturally good at certain things, but people to be good at all of these things together, including understanding when to set boundaries, when I'm getting into burnout phase, is tricky. It's in fact most trained professionals struggle with being able to define boundaries when it comes to the care that they provide to their clients or to people that they're providing care to. Right. So for people who are not trained, this becomes even more difficult.
Of course.
So
So,
yes, to answer that your initial question, I would suggest some amount of training is better.
mm,
Um,
and
and luckily now trainings are available. You don't, matlab, there are enough people who are or enough organizations that are providing trainings for caregivers,
right, right,
right? So if it's available, please make use of it.
of course. Now, the point that we had reached from here, like boundary setting, right? What does it even mean in the first place when we are talking about boundary setting? Um, because for the caregiver, for example, the person who I'm in charge of, they are supposed to get an injection at such and such times, or whenever such and such thing drops in their system, then I have to be able to provide an injection, and that is my responsibility. That means I have to be on alert anytime, right? Now, how can you talk to me about boundary setting, Nitin? can be an interesting question that can come up.
Okay, so when we talk about boundaries, what do we really mean? So think of it this way: how are you providing that care that you're providing to someone?
Right.
Right? There's one, you are invested in them as far as time is concerned. You're providing time for them. Second, you're offering emotional support to them. So you're emotionally engaged with them. And because of the different activities that you're doing for them, there's a lot of energy that is being utilized. So
Okay.
primarily, there are three ways in which you're contributing as a caregiver.
Mm.
Okay, right? So there will be time,
Mm.
emotions,
Mm.
and actual energy.
Mm.
Right? What do we mean by boundary settings?
Mm.
Setting boundaries in all of these three areas. So if I know that someone has to take a medicine in, like you mentioned, at 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 9 o'clock,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And at 1 o'clock, I have a child who comes from school, right? Now I also need to take care of the child.
Right.
On certain days, I try to find ways in which I'll go to the school slightly earlier, slightly later, make around a way so that I can take this person with me at 1 o'clock, so that 1 o'clock I'm with the child and I can also offer them medication and so on. But
Mm.
this is not going to sustain for too long. On some days, the child will complain.
Mm.
On some days, this person may have a bad day and they may have certain emotional breakdown in front of the child.
Mm.
Right? So if you know that at 1 o'clock you are going to be busy with something, you are not just setting boundaries by saying that all right, at 1 o'clock I can't be available with you. You can also find someone else to be available with that person and create a long-term strategy. So when we talk about setting boundaries in the space of caregiving, the boundary is not just that I can't do beyond this. The boundary is all right, I know my limitations. I can be with you at 5 o'clock and 9 o'clock, but given the circumstances, because I can't be with you at 1 o'clock, I will see if I can find someone who can be available with you. And if 1 o'clock is a problem for me every time, then then it gives me a reason to plan accordingly.
Right.
Right?
Not being
Similarly with
available.
emotions and energy.
Right.
Right? If I know that beyond X number of hours, I get emotionally so exhausted, I become irritable.
Right.
I get frustrated.
Right.
Right? Now, wouldn't it be self-defeating if I were to try and take care of someone and then get irritated and frustrated with them and then think, why can't they understand that I'm doing so much for them? And
Right.
then feel guilty about it also.
And the challenging thing here as well, very often we don't even realize that we have, for example, in this case where you are providing emotional support, we don't even realize that our quality of that emotional support has dropped. Because again, we are operating on the principle, as long as I'm saying yes, the care is being offered. Because I've been doing it for so long, sometimes it may end up happening it becomes a mechanical thing, because emotionally I just do not have the energy to be there emotionally present. I'm not able to smile. What does it mean, being emotionally present? I'm not even able to smile when I'm coming to help you. Why? Because this is taking energy for me. And
So one is this is taking energy from me, and there are times when people will want to make themselves feel miserable because they feel if I smile in front of the person who I'm taking care of,
they
they
will,
will feel how can they smile while I'm in this condition.
right, right.
Right? So there are
And
just
they're laughing at
too
me.
many things that happen when it comes to the space of caregiving.
It's almost,
So
so this second one that you mentioned, this is almost like the caregiver walks on eggshells around the person, so that I don't want to kind of trigger any emotional minds around the person. So I'll just stop being me, right? In a way, is just stop being me. And then over time, when I start feeling numbness and I don't give a damn, and thoughts like, I can't take one more call of the person, these thoughts start happening. They are suddenly like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And then the conversation just has to stop, because now I have to. I've had people end up having to say to the other person, not that they wanted to, but having to say, yes, I mean, I can't do it. And the person, like, I may do something, like, I can't, I don't care.
and the problem with this is both people end up feeling cheated. The one who's the caregiver feels cheated because they feel I've done so much and you can't see that.
Right?
And
Therefore,
the one who was receiving the care ends up feeling cheated that so if you were doing so much, you why couldn't you have just told me earlier so that we could have why are you blaming me in the end?
Right.
right? So it becomes extremely important that those boundary settings are done correctly. To summarize this again, right? So one was in terms of
Time,
the time that you're investing.
emotion,
Second is the emotions, and third is the physical energy,
physical energy.
right? If you're feeling exhausted, you need to sleep, you need to sleep. Again, I am not saying tell them that I don't care, I have to sleep for 8 hours. For those 8 hours, if they need support, check if there's someone that you can find for them. Check if there's some other strategies that you can figure out, right? I also understand you may not be able to figure out strategies today itself. So
Right.
it's okay that maybe for 1, 2, 3 days, I may still need to sleep less because I'm still trying to figure out someone who can take care of this person. But that, if you are able to do, then you're not on a long term spree of exhausting yourself and
Mm-hmm.
burning out, right? So it's important that you set those boundaries. I'm also not saying that your boundaries are more important than the person or the suffering that the person is going through. You have to find a middle ground, but start looking at what that middle ground will be. Unless you look for it, you will not find it.
Right. And because interestingly, right, boundary setting had also become this buzzword for a lot of people. So, and for a lot of people, unfortunately, boundary setting is not about knowing my limits. For a lot of people, boundary setting is about keeping bad people out or bad things out, right? Or so where boundary setting is saying no. So the moment I say no, like how do I deal with this question? Because this is one of the primary challenges that I've observed, that for boundary setting, one of the primary things I need to do is develop my relationship with no, but my association with people pleasing, right? Where my sense of worth is coming from being there for others and being providing value to someone else. The saying no almost goes against the core of my being. So what would you tell them?
Okay, so ek to one core of my being, I don't know what that
This
means.
is
As
exactly. I mean, I'm just saying this is what is being communicated.
yeah, because as humans, if there's one thing that's for sure, is as humans we keep evolving, right? And I understand there can be certain traits that you're most comfortable with and so on, but they don't really define you. That's something that you may be comfortable with, but if you really want to work towards changing them, right, at least your behavior, your traits, your thoughts, your emotions, many of them you can work towards changing. So that's one part of the story. Second, as far as when you say my relationship with no, okay, so you're saying no any which ways. You can either say no to someone today while you have a choice and do it in a way in which it works for you and for the other person both. Or you wait till you reach a place where you have no option but to say no. And there, because you have no options but to say no, right? Uh, the way it will be said and the way it will turn out will generally not be in the interest of either you or the other person.
Right.
Or third, even when I have no option but to say no, I will not say no to an extent where I fall sick, I fall ill, and I my life becomes very miserable, which still means that once all of that happens, you will not be able to take care of the person that you were saying yes to,
Becomes an
and you will
odd.
now have to say no, not directly. So you may not feel guilty about the fact that I had to say no to them, but you have to go through a X set of pain because you were not able to say it earlier,
To
right?
prove
And
your
you're still saying no in a way because you can't take care of them now. So it's just a question of how do you want to say no. I would recommend say no in a way in which you have the choice. You're doing it in a place where you have the ability to plan and make it work for you and the other person both, as opposed to reaching a place where, well,
no.
as they say, Rambaro say.
So just to kind of recap that, I think that was quite important for us to know that if you're a caregiver working purely on your emotional strength, I'm not saying that such a thing exists, but a lot of people talk in these words where I will just go through it, I will dedicate my life, I will put myself, I'll burn myself for this person because this person is falana falana whatever, without knowing that even in such situations you ending up killing yourself is not helping the other person.
So,
And
you know,
caregiving is a more long term. When we are talking about caregiving, a long term or a strategic approach is something that is needed. Yes, an emotional backing to it, or an emotional motivator that is with it, is helpful, right? Because that's why you said that, Sachin, many a time the untrained family members can be even better caregivers than trained caregivers. But where is that coming from? That is coming from that emotional strength that these people are talking about. However, you will be doing yourself a grave injustice if there is no planning involved in this, and there is no long term approach to caregiving. Like, if I'm doing this, what is my current involvement like? Is it 4 hours a day? Like you said, the three aspects of it: time, emotion, and physical energy. So how many hours a day is this expectation for? How much of my emotions are getting activated or triggered or frustrated? Keeping a check on these things. And physical energy, like, am I doing any other things, work wise, exercise wise, to my life, where I'm expending energy, right? So there is already other sources where my energy is going, and then I have to fit in another 4 hours worth of energy giving into my life. So until and unless we do this in a strategic way, you're already planning for a burnout.
Also, when you mentioned earlier that you will do a grave injustice to yourself, I would actually say you will do a grave injustice to yourself and the other person both in the long run.
Right, right.
Right? There was a movie called The Waiting.
Mm,
Waiting, I think.
okay,
Nasruddin Shah and Kalki.
okay.
It's a movie where Kalki's husband meets with an accident and he's in a coma. And Nasruddin Shah is in the same hospital where Kalki's husband has been admitted, and his wife has been in a coma for a long time.
Okay.
Okay, so initially Kalki goes to the hospital. She tries everything to speak to the doctors. Do it. Malab, she's just all over the place trying to figure out what's happening, what's going on, what can I do, how can I help.
Yeah, yeah,
Eventually, the doctor says that you can only meet at these period of times.
yeah,
Now that he is in a coma and whatever it is, you can't be 24 hours with them. He
yeah.
needs a particular specialist kind of support, and the hospital is going to provide that support for you. All of a sudden, Kalki starts feeling very helpless and she stops going to the hospital altogether.
Helpless, useless, worthless.
Helpless, useless, worthless, matlab, hopeless, all of these feelings together. And she stops going to the hospital altogether. Nasruddin Shah notices day one, day two. After a few days, Nasruddin Shah goes to her hotel,
Mm,
knocks on the door, and she's matlab, on the bed, not has not eaten, has not taken a bath,
mm,
and so on.
mm,
So she opens the door. Nasruddin Shah goes inside. She asks him, "What are you doing over here?"
mm,
And then Nasruddin Shah says something to her, which is very interesting.
mm,
He says three things in your life should never stop:
mm,
sleeping,
mm,
eating, and taking a bath.
mm.
Okay, because if these three things stop, invariably you would go into a phase where hopelessness, helplessness has taken over you.
Yeah.
And then he says something even more interesting. And she says, "So what's the point? Why
Mm,
should I do all of this?"
right.
He says, "Today he is in the hospital
Mm,
where there are nurses taking care of him. Someday he would recover to an extent where he will go home. And if you don't do all of this today, tomorrow when he comes home, you will not be in a position to take care of him.
yeah.
So if you're asking me why do I do this,
This is
if
my.
not for you, do it for him."
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea is self-care, boundary setting. All of this is important not just because it's important for you. It's important because that's the only way in the long run you will be able to provide care to the people who need care around you.
Mm. Right. And this is where the compassion well exercise also comes into play, right? Where we uh, the simple thing to imagine for anyone. I think you can go ahead with it
Then
is.
you can explain that. So go ahead and explain.
So the compassion well exercise, where we are able to see that a person imagining, for those who are watching the video, right? Imagine a well. Consider, and if you can bring up that imagination, consider that well which is full of water right up to the brim. How do you feel when you look at that water? Do you feel like taking it? Do you feel like it would be very refreshing and clean water? Now, if imagine if you had that well and someone came to drink, ask water from you, what would you do? You would, I would assume you would naturally, hey, what do you even need to ask me? Just take it. It's there. It's well. It's doing its job. Why you shouldn't even ask me? How dare you disrespect me like this? But then, what happens? Imagine that same well where the water's now gone up to halfway. Now, are you able to see the water? Yes, but it's a bit dark now. It's not. It's not looking. It doesn't have that same glint, that same sparkle of the sunlight shimmering on it, like it did. But you know what? I still feel very comfortable. If anyone were to ask me for water now, I would still be like, "Hey, it's a well. Still don't need to ask me. Just you know what? Here's a tap. I've just put up a tap next to the well. Whenever you want, take it. Don't worry about this. Yeah, it's a well." But then what happens when the if it's right in the middle of the summer and the well's water has dropped really low? What a lot of us fail to see, did you look at that water, or when was the last time you checked that well in the first place? When you look down in that well right now, what do you see? Do you see clean, crystal clear water, or do you see a slushy, muddy puddle? Right? And it is important for us to know that this is a slushy, muddy puddle. Why? Because now, if someone were to come and ask me for water, am I even giving them water when I say, yes, go ahead and use the tap? Is that even water that is coming out, or is that something that is toxic, possibly? Is that something that may cause some illness to the person? Can it backfire? In this case, I'm so exhausted. I've been just knackered. I haven't slept in the past 3 days because I was providing emotional support to you, mind you. And today you called up again at 1 a.m. And for me, that call was, I, I can't. And still I took it, and I'm listening to you, and maybe in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I just started snoring on the call. Or I started getting irritated with you, where I used to be able to offer you empathy. I'm suddenly bombarding you with solutions, or telling you how you have not been doing anything to help yourself, and how you need to possibly, where it's no longer support, but it has turned into something that can be even actually more toxic. And we may still feel that because I am not saying no, this is what help looks like and you better take it. That is not us being nice.
Yeah.
In fact, it can backfire. So that was an
In
example I
fact,
can give you.
to stretch to extend this further, right? So when the person came and asked you for water the first time, and you offered that water, makes sense. Second time, third time, fourth time, but when you realize the person has a frequent need for water, and you knew how much water is in your well,
Mhm.
okay, you might have actually started digging another well if required, so that you are planned for the next one, right? Or you may have metaphorically, you may have ordered a water tank and kept the water tank in buffer to ensure that something is available. So
Mm.
it's important that you're, when you're offering care to other people, that you're also aware of what's happening inside you,
Right.
what's happening with you. And it's important that you plan for being able to actually provide effective care. Only wanting to provide effective care at times is not enough.
Right. And being very clear with oneself, just out of your niceness, if you're still going to push your own boundaries, if you don't lay down your boundaries for yourself, again, I think it is primarily very important for people to understand the boundary setting is not for others. Boundary setting is for you. It is for you to understand your limits, your physical exhaustion levels. And it's not for you to wait till you are hit that exhaustion level. It is that you need to be able to see the levels where I'm going to be approaching low water very soon. So I should start planning now. Maybe I need a water pump, or maybe I need to go take water from someone else's well too. This is another from boundary
Or
setting,
maybe just guide the person to some other well if required for now.
right? But this is the next part of, I mean, post boundary setting. The other important, asking for help for yourself. And this, I feel like it's almost for caregivers, this is the hardest thing to do, that asking or wanting for wanting care for themselves. Any thoughts on that, Nitin?
See, also what happens is many a times it's we get sucked into our own loops, right? For example, there are people who will tell you, "Oh, I provide support to other people. How can I need help?"
Mm. So the
Yes,
way we may end up putting ourselves on a pedestal.
correct. And when that happens, asking for help becomes very difficult. Not because while we say that I don't need help, and at times we say what will people think, but it's really then not as much about what people will say. It's about I am not able to live up to my own standards in my head.
Mm.
I've put myself on the pedestal, and now I realize that wait, this is not working for me,
Mm.
and I can't roll back from there.
Mm. Mm.
Right. So it's important that whenever you are in a situation where you are not able to take care of yourself,
Mm.
and when I say take care of yourself, means that there is dysfunctionality coming in your life that you're not able to address.
Mm.
Okay. Please seek help.
Mm.
And don't wait till things become dysfunctional. The
Right.
moment you start realizing that it may become dysfunctional at some point, it's
But
actually a better idea to start seeking help sooner.
so shall we also then look into what could be some of the warning signs a person can experience when they may be going through this, when they're approaching burnout? Because again, I'm not looking to just see the signs of burnout, but also
But it
that
may become dysfunctional at some.
it's not that
Sorry, can you say that again? The last line.
it's not about you have to wait till burnout hits and then start asking for help. There is a way to, if you can identify from today's conversation that yes, I am a caregiver, then instead of waiting for a burnout, maybe also knowing how to know when my well is only halfway. So when we are talking about signs, what could be some of the different things a person may experience, that these are definitely signs that they need to keep an eye out for?
So I'll give you the broad ones, but I would like to know your view on this, right? But the fact that you're becoming more irritable, the fact that there are those thoughts in your mind that I can't do this, uh, the fact that you are not being present to the other person that you were able to be present to earlier.
Right? So this thing, presencing yourself, where uh, do I find myself, or do find myself getting lost in my thoughts or getting distracted with other stuff when I'm actually with the person or in that emotionally supportive role? Do I catch myself drifting off or getting distracted quite often? That's definitely one. I think also what you mentioned regarding the physical aspects, sleep, food, and I mean, as Nasaruddin Shah mentioned, uh, if you look at your basic five components, food, sleep, exercise, uh, and I think some level of now we have also added media regulation, the amount of media consumption that you're doing, and then the amount of sunlight that you kind of spend time with. So these 4 or 5 very very core basic things that we need to do, and this we are not just looking at it from the perspective of the body but of the mind.
True.
If you are a caregiver, that it is high time that the physical, very often as a caregiver I may look at my physical signs quite a bit, but we have failed to see that there is something, a very important resource. I've got a thread on this, it's been annoying me. It's being able to see that it's not just the time, my mind, there is a resource or a tool that I have, which is my mind, and that experiences exhaustion as well. And just like to take care of my body, I maybe brush my teeth, take a shower every day, and there are certain physical habits that I have developed or routines that I have developed that helps take care of the basic wear and tear of my body in the long run. Similarly, I will need to invest time in building a routine for my mind. What are your thoughts on that, Nitin?
Yeah, see, it's important for, like I said earlier, right? I have to take care of myself, be it emotional well being, be it physical well being, be it hygiene. They're all important components, and unless I'm able to do that well, I will not be able to take care of myself. I'll not be able to take care of other people. It's just as simple as that.
Right? And uh, when we have looked at these five basic things, then looking at some other warning signs. If these are some of the things that already you're struggling with, and in sleep as well, I think I needed to point out that you may be regular with your sleep, but you regularly sleep for only 4 hours,
Or you sleep for more time and yet your quality of sleep is really poor. You
right?
keep getting up in the middle of the night multiple times.
Because the doctor said I have to sleep for 7 hours, so I sleep for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and maybe 3 hours in the night. And I have seen people actually break down when they try to even say these things out, because they realize this is not helping me. But then there is also this other part of them that says there is no other option for me. The feeling, I'm feeling stuck, I don't have any other, I don't have time to plan now.
Also, so just so one thing, huh? So again, when we are saying this, I understand that there are places and there are situations where just the circumstances such that at this point I need to do something, right? We are not taking away from that. We understand that. The only thing that we are what we are trying to say right now is that unless you look for a way out of it, you will not find a way. The way will not just appear by itself, or it's rare for a way to appear by itself, right? So if you're in a situation where you realize that no, I have to do this, there is no one else for that person in their life. I understand this, but still keep on a lookout for what else can I do to make sure that I can take care of myself and I can also have a network, some kind of a system to take care of them,
Right. So, for
right?
example, the challenge here is that of a wife, for example, or a husband for that matter, where it is my partner, it is my life partner. So, there is almost an assumption here that, you know what, you are supposed to die with each other. You are supposed to live or die for each other. It is in sickness and in health, and it is in life as in death. When you're putting in such strong values with that, isn't it my job and only my job to do it? But what you are saying is it's not. What you are supposed to be able to see is no one person can take a whole responsibility. I mean, I'm sure there are great people, men, women who have done that, but it is almost futile to expect this out of one person.
Correct. What I'm saying is it's futile to expect out of one person. At the same time, that one person can plan in a way in which there is other supportive system available for him. So again, I am not saying that leave your family members because they're completely that because you need to take care of them, right? They are your family members. Probably at some point of time, you have needed help and they have really cared for you, provided for you, and so on. And even if they haven't, you may want to do it out of the goodness of your space. Having said that, if you really want to do it in the long run, you need to find a way to be able to make it sustainable. And if you think I'm going to leave everything and just do this to an extent where it hurts my mental, emotional, behavioral well being, right? It's not long term sustainable.
Right. So
So you
maybe,
have to find a way
right.
to find additional strategies that will work for both of you.
Right. So, a simple example, right? Uh, uh, a working woman left her job, her career, or whatever future she was thinking and hoping and praying for, and working hard for that matter, because there's a child now. The child is needing extra care because they have some congenital issues. Now, an expectation of that mother is, well, obviously you will be leaving your job and doing this. And for a mother, they may even underplay that right, I had to choose, and I, of course, I will have to choose my kid over this. But then I will not allow myself to feel or grieve, for example, the loss of my career. Of I'm not saying that the career would have really helped you, or put you again in a rat race that again everyone is trying to get out of. But the point being that this was an aspiration, this was a goal for you, you had worked towards it. And if such things also, if you are going to make a sacrifice, do not just make a sacrifice and think that you will feel all good and better, and it will all be worth it. It may never feel worth it in that sense, because if you haven't grieved this loss as well, and there is that process. Just because I'm doing this for my kid does not take away that what I'm going through right now also needs a grieving process of mine, and me grieving it does not mean that I care less for my child,
True.
right? So these are, I feel like a lot of these are ethical or moral conundrums that people end up facing, and then not taking a coping mechanism or a measure or a strategy. They don't even begin this process of strategizing and planning. Why? Because if I do that, in a way, am I not saying that the person who I'm taking care of is a burden?
So there are a couple of things, right, Sachin? One is this. Second is also we live in this illusion that this can't happen to us.
Mm,
Okay? I wouldn't get exhausted. I love them so much that they would never come across as a burden for me.
mm,
So many times the problem is not really that I'm worried that this would mean that they are a burden. The bigger concern is the idea that this will not happen to us. This can't happen to me. It's like this, right? When someone, for a long time, when it came to insurance policies, people would not take insurance policy because no, no, I wouldn't die.
I mean, मेरे साथ नहीं होगा ये.
मेरे साथ नहीं होगा. Okay. So
But
that,
lottery ले लेता हूँ because I
हाँ.
could get that.
So that is, मतलब we overestimate our luck and underestimate the fact that there are certain things that can go wrong.
Hmm.
And that also many a times comes in the way of us planning effectively.
Hmm. Fair. So over here, I think we have stressed a lot on the planning aspect. I first, so if we were
So
to,
again, sorry, Sachin, just one last thing. Huh?
go on.
So please remember when we are talking about planning, the idea of planning is to ensure that you don't feel guilty about setting boundaries, about uh, uh, being able to prioritize yourself in certain situations,
Hmm.
right? Planning is just ensuring that you are able to take care of yourself
Hmm.
while also being able to take care of the other person.
And so that becomes a very, very core part of this. And to do that, there are trainings available, there are spaces available, there are alternates for you available. For example, where, right, I need a break, then what are the options that I can provide or offer the other person? So there are many such actual care possible and available. The point will be that some level of research or some level of making a phone call, or just going, looking at what are these spaces like. Even we are seeing, I think in India as well, we are seeing a growing number of caregiver support groups popping up as well. So as a caregiver, taking time out, meeting other fellow caregivers and seeing the camaraderie, I mean, the camaraderie comes in from that sympathetic space that they share with each other. So these are important avenues. Talking about the emotional, physical, time-based strain that you may experience because you're offering your time as a caregiver is also a very important part of self-care.
Plus, you can learn certain strategies from them. You can learn from their mistakes. Many of them may be in a situation where, while they were being a caregiver, they were being the caregiver, and then the person that they were giving care for either has moved on or has improved, and now they no longer have that need to be a caregiver, but they have that space available where they can support you, they can help you. So there's those network, especially peer network with other support givers
Hmm.
or caregivers, can be very, very useful and important for you and for the person that you're providing care for.
Right? So perfect. So if we were to, I think that kind of completed almost the journey of the caregiver there. So if we were to quickly look at the recap, we have spoken about how do we kind of define a caregiver. We have looked at how caregiving may be required, especially in chronic situations or physical, emotional, mental situations that someone may be going through, and what are these specific challenges that it can bring up, especially ethical, moral challenges that one may face in these situations. There are promises or overpromise that we may make with regards to confidentiality, unconditional availability uh, these are also challenges that can again add on to the guilt and shame of the whole thing. And then looking at some warning signs for ourselves, what are the thoughts coming up in me? Am I finding myself maybe losing some of my emotional space? I mean, we were looking at I was just looking at burnout and the key sides of it, where there is depersonalization as well, where I almost start feeling disconnected with my own self and my own feelings, and whatever is happening is almost happening in a auto mode. Like I may like the example of driving without realizing what all I have driven through. So that depersonalization, and if these are experiences that are popping up, please understand that these are signs that you should not be taking lightly. As a caregiver, taking offering self care is not selfish, it is the sustenance for long term. So
Yeah.
that I'm me able to take that 10 minutes to 1 hour, offering not distraction, but a strategy, a coping mechanism that I've planned, and I have to put it into action on a regular routine basis as well, is not me being selfish towards myself, but it is helping me be available for this person or my loved one for a longer duration. And if we come to think about it, that is something that may actually be sustainable as well for the person, right? So
True.
uh, thank you so much, Nitin. It was fantastic again speaking with you. Any parting thoughts, or from you, what were the takeaways that you would want people to
No,
gain
I
from?
think you summarized it quite well. The only thing I would say is, as caregivers, it's important to also be care receivers.
Mm,
You need to be able to provide care to others. You need to be able to provide care to yourself. You need to also be able to receive care when you need it. Right?
right.
Just take care of this, and then
Wonderful. With that, I think you can definitely look us up. Nitin, this is Nitin Shah from iChars. I'm Sachin Chitambran from the Connect Hut. Please look into our organizations and the training programs. There are a lot of them. Uh, Obviously, we will be having more such sessions in the future as well. We are still thinking of, we are always taking in suggestions from the audience in terms of what other conversations would you like us to throw some light on. And just like today's conversation, we try not to go so much into the jargon and the psychological aspect of things, but more on an application and day to day living through that, or the moments of truth that we may experience. And at a logistical and a life level, what are these challenges, what they can look like, can we bring awareness to that, and can I do something to help myself or get help from someone else, that will help me do my what I have aimed here as a goal, for me to help reach that. So thank you so much, Nitin. As usual, it has been
thank you,
fantastic.
Sachin. Thank you for having me on this conversation. It's always fun to connect with you, to have a conversation with you. There's always some or the other learning that we are having when we are having these conversations. So, to many more such conversations going forward.
Yes, please. Thank you. Take care, Nitin.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.